Welcome to Connecting Point for Sunday, October 27th. I'm your host, Liz Kalidas. Westfield is one of 6 Western Massachusetts communities voting to elect a mayor on November 5th. On this statewide edition of Connecting Point, Jim Madigan hosts a debate between the candidates for mayor of Westfield.
And my guests are the candidates for mayor of Westfield, 2-term incumbent mayor Daniel Knapik, and his challenger Michael Roeder, who retired after serving as an active duty U.S. Army Reserve officer and a manager with the Connecticut Department of Corrections. Gentlemen, thank you both for giving us time being with us. We appreciate it. No opening and closing statements, no strict time limits. I'll do my best with the help of a terrific timekeeper who's in my ear to keep things fair and even. We did flip a coin just a few minutes ago to decide the speaking order, which will then rotate throughout the program. Mr. Knapik won the coin toss. He elected to let his opponent, Mr. Roeder, receive, if you will, take the first question. So that is where we will start. And let's start, Mr. Roeder, with the area of taxes. That's what you've said is really the reason that you are running to a large degree. You say that you're concerned that people will leave Westfield. The city will be left with an increasingly poor population, dependent on Section 8 housing, assistance, and other programs, because you feel taxes are just too high and only getting higher.
Well, if you look at the number of increases that have occurred since I moved back to town in 2006, I grew up in Westfield, did my career thing, came back to Westfield in 2006 to retire. In 2006, there was a 2.5% increase, and it's been that way every year, including this year. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, and 2.5% is the projection based on revenue incomes put out by the mayor for 15, 16, 17, 18. So if you include 2014 through 2018, that looks like a 12.5% increase on top of everything else that's come down over the years. People tell me in the city that they want tax relief from property taxes. Businesses tell me the same thing. My belief is that we ought to at least have a discussion about it, because it's never discussed in political circles that exist in Westfield today. When you can have property tax reductions in every town surrounding us except Southwick, and Chicopee announcing just this week there will be no tax increase again, and the mayor plans on putting $2.2 million into the stabilization fund in the city of Westfield, although it's not a tax per se, we're taking money out to meet our tax shortfall obligations. So I'm thinking that it's about time to do something about taxes. So my goal in that area alone is to prevent a tax increase in FY215, which starts July 1st, 2014. And that is my plan. I'm going to work very hard to do that by looking at expenses. We're going to cut to the bone. We're going to stop the borrowing, because that leads to higher interest and principal payments every year. You know, interestingly enough, I'll just say this and I'll stop. You want me to stop? Okay. We've borrowed $40 million. We've paid $40 million over the last 5 years in principal and interest in this city on our bond debt of $100 million, and we still owe $100 million. That's not what I intend to do.
That was just about 2 minutes, 15 seconds, Mr. Knapik. We'll give you at least that time.
Sure. Thanks, Jim. Well, number one, in property tax across the Commonwealth, the property tax burden across the state has never been higher than it has been since Proposition 2.5. Actually, Mr. Roeder, you ought to check your facts a little bit. Since 2003, there's been 4 years in which we haven't levied at 2.5%. 2 of those years were my years, okay? One was 03, one was 07. And in my years, they bested both of those 2 years. And in fact, I returned $1 million back to the taxpayers. So first of all, one thing you should be mindful of is when you put information out to the public record, it needs to be factual. And it hasn't been on your end of it. The other part that is a bit troublesome to me is just the statement you just said. As a matter of fact, I just got off the phone with the treasurer today. The bond service, the debt service, including all our utility companies, in 2009 when I took office was $80 million. January 2014, it's going to be $95 million. So every year, what you don't pay attention to is we shed an enormous amount of debt from borrowings from years ago. And as a matter of fact, we just got off a ratings call, and I'll release the issue to the public next week in a press release from Moody's. We've been reaffirmed as a MIG 1 rating, highest rating you can get from short-term borrowing, great stabilization account. We ended the surplus this year almost $3 million, and you said in a letter to the editor it was going to be a $2 million shortfall. And in fact, every year, I don't say that we're going to levy to 2.5%. I say the same thing. We've lost $4 million roughly in state aid in the last 4 years from where we were in 2010. Any mayor who puts out a more than a 1-year projection, that's just, you don't know what you're shooting at because all of the numbers change. And one of the things I've been very honest from the beginning is we'll take a decision year by year on our cash situation. And the fact is, Mike, our city didn't pay attention to all of the troubles that it had for years. And in fact, deferred maintenance in just the City Hall building and the Westfield Votech building alone was $2 million. I've gone out in the last 4 years, told the citizens what was in front of them, and I'm not going to kick the can down the road like what happened in the years before me. I've come up with a funding plan. We got a record amount of state aid for our school projects, and we're fixing our buildings. For the first time in 40 years, we're fixing our buildings, and I'm very proud of that fact.
I think time's just about equal, believe it or not, and I'm sure you want to go back and forth a little bit on this. Go ahead.
Well, I call this, Dan, I call this the Knapik spin. I'll tell you what, I've seen my tax bills for the last 8 years, and I'm not happy with the increases, and neither are a lot of people in the city. The fact of the matter is this: taxes have gone up substantially during your tenure as mayor, and they're going to keep going up as long as you keep borrowing money, and it's almost an out-of-control situation. In fact, I have said that the borrowing that you are engaging on right now is out of control, and we're looking at another $100 million.
It's not true.
Well, let me finish.
It's not, Mike.
No, let me finish. Oh, yes, we are.
You're just making stuff up again.
Either
briefly, and then
you
Mr.
let me
Knapik
finish
respond.
my comments, or we're going to have a problem here.
Go ahead.
All right. I want to stay on the high road. I was told this would happen. I'm very disappointed that it's happening. Okay, so if you want to go line by line on the different projects, let's talk about City Hall. This was a $10 million bond that you popped through just a few months ago, on top of a $17.5 million bond that you, 18.5, that you took out in June of 2012. You refinanced that 6 months later because it was a 6-month note from a bank in Louisiana. You paid the interest up front, and then you refinanced it 6 months later because you knew you didn't have the money to pay it back. Only this time you borrowed $19.7 million, and I'm trying to figure out what that $1.2 million extra was. But even more important than that, Dan, that was a green project, so the state was going to come back with $10 million, and to this day, I don't know where that $10 million went. It's this type of thing that have people on edge because it just seems to have no end. Every couple of weeks, it seems to me, there's a new multi-million-dollar project like the $47 million boondoggle that you announced last week on the riverfront. Dan, it has to stop. It really does, because this economy is not good. People are out of work.
Let's let Mr. Knapik respond.
Well, you know, you ought to be a fiction writer in another life because I don't even know what you're talking about. City Hall was never a qualified project for any green state aid at all. And in fact, I've never seen you at one of my coffee hours. I've never seen you at a ward meeting. You've never called me. You've never talked to anybody anywhere in the city to talk about this stuff. And none of your math makes up. Every time, just like recently, we have to do a short-term borrow because when you go out and do a project, it could be 2 years before you actually get to the point where the note gets matured. And I went down to Louisiana and got a line of credit? Well, let's look at your campaign literature here. This is the pipeline you're talking about. $36 million for the new school. You sent this to thousands of people in Westfield. You know what the city's cost in a new school is? Not $36 million, Mike.
It was at the time I did that. Sure it was.
It never was. Well, let me finish. Please.
Okay.
There'll be time.
Good. Fine. Let's go.
Okay, that was the projected number for a building of this magnitude. The city's share, Mike, I don't know where you've been since '06, but you certainly haven't been paying attention. It's $7 million. That's the city's. Let me go down here. Let me pick another one. A police fire complex on Little River Road. There's no such project. You have it at $25 million. An industrial park project on the north side, $10 million. I mean, I don't know where you come up with this stuff. Solar farm? A solar farm will pay us money in lieu of tax payment, a lease payment, and give us lower cost energy. I mean, you say this stuff, and I can't believe you'd believe it because none of it's true. Your whole literature is a lie.
You mean to tell me the $10 million bond that you're going to go to the council with after election for the third industrial park is a myth?
There is no $10 million bond.
How much was it? How much is it
I
going to be?
don't even know what you're talking about.
How much is that going to be?
There's no industrial park bond at all.
How about the $36 million for the school? That is what you went to the Massachusetts School Borrowing Authority. You got approved for $36 million, and then suddenly, by a miracle, a month ago, it was down to $24 million. And you know what happened there? It's the Knapik spin.
Okay.
It is, because you were going to take that $12 million and use it to expand the roads around the Ashley Street
do that,
School.
Mike.
Let me finish.
Briefly, and then we need to let Mr.
So
Knapik
what
respond.
happened was you realized that people were onto it. Your case, because the case is now pending in state court.
Unbelievable.
Tom Smith stopped you dead in your tracks. And I'm happy he did it for the sake of the people of Westfield. And now you got a bomb site there that'll be there until this case comes up again in March, I guess. And who knows what will happen then. It'll be years. I'm going to tell you right now, the first thing I do if I'm elected mayor is I take that project out of its misery, and I'm going to do it.
Well, first of all, you can't take school money that's been appropriated by MSBA and use it for anything else but a school.
I don't intend to.
The MSBA, well, you can't. It's the law, Mike.
Well, I didn't say I was.
Well, you did. Well, you told me I was doing that, and you said that I got uncovered or something. So MSBA put a target dollar value on the school project, $36 million. It went to bid. The bid came in at $24 million with some alternates to make it 27. Our share, because it's a green school and all the other credits we got, took the financing to $7 million because we got almost 70% reimbursement. Here's what I'm going to tell you about that school project. It's city-owned property. We have all the zoning conformance that we need. All those properties that are in question were never park preserved properties. They were taken by tax title. There's no deed restriction at all in the registry of deeds on those parcels. But here's my question to you. You don't have a plan. We have June 2015, 300 kids at Juniper Park School need a home. I'm not putting them in modular classrooms. Under your plan, because you don't have a plan, you will put them in modulars. So you tell the parents of Westfield, the 230 at Abner Gibbs, the 270 at Franklin, and the 300 at Juniper, you're ready to put them in modular classrooms. I'm not.
No, I'm not. I'm not raising the issue of modular classrooms. I'm suggesting that we take a look at the schools we have that are completely underutilized. Our student population over the last 10 years has gone down to about 5,000 students.
You're wrong here, too.
Well, I'm not wrong.
You are. The results came out. October 1st is the deadline. There are 5,800 kids. It's been solid about 6,000.
I'm going to tell you right now, here's what my plan is. We're going to take a look at the schools and see if we can utilize the maximum space that's out there, because there is a lot.
There's 130 spaces at Munger Hill School, and that's it, Mike. That's it.
Well, the information I have is...
Well, it's wrong information. I'm the chairman of the school board.
Dan, either you let me finish my statements. Would you mind doing that?
Well, why don't you start talking correctly about the record,
Dan,
please?
either...
Gentlemen, let's each of you take briefly, and then we'll move on to another question. Go ahead, finish your thought, if you would, Mr. Roeder.
Well, Dan wouldn't know if I had a plan or not, because this is the first time, really, except for the silly season thing you did at the Westfield News, where you've actually acknowledged I exist. This is the first time you've actually mentioned my name in public. You've done a good job. It's a good strategy of completely ignoring my campaign. You wouldn't have a clue if I had a plan about anything, including bonding.
All right, let's...
Well, this is your election platform. Plus, I checked your website. There's no plan for the new school.
And I stand by it.
So I stand by that.
All
I
right.
stand by it.
Gentlemen, let's move on, see if we can get another issue or two in here. We're talking about taxes and the cost of government. Let's talk about tax base. How do we expand the tax base? This will go first to Mr. Knapik. What are you doing? What would you do if elected for 2 more years to bring more business, new companies, more jobs, new jobs to Westfield?
Well, first of all, since I've been mayor, we've had about $130 million of investment, particularly aimed at the north side. So that's real numbers already came in. We have set the table up at the airport for future expansion. As a matter of fact, Gulfstream is on a record clip to add more jobs. We've prepared space up there for additional companies. We have a proposal right now for a firm to invest $1 million into our restaurant up there. We have another $60 million of investment coming through the pipeline up at Barnes. So Barnes Regional Airport and the steps we've taken to open up space there is really the economic driver. I made a pledge 4 years ago to our citizens on the north side. I would not give tax incentives to trucking firms, and I've kept my word on that. It's been a very difficult situation. There's still a lot of interest for Westfield to be the truck capital of the world, but I've swore off that. I'm not doing that, and so we needed to retool the ability to take the real estate we have that we own as opposed to a private developer owns, because whatever is in the zone, they can develop that, and then go out and get business to come to that location. The other part is the downtown. So Mike talked about a $47 million project I unveiled yesterday. What Mike doesn't appreciate is the fact that that was private investment. There's a condo development in there, there's a commercial strip in that. There's almost no city investment. Maybe there's $100,000 to clean up some environmental messes, and these are things that need to be done because a private sector can't clean up the environmental mess. Talking about Elm Street, downtown redevelopment is a real thing going on right now. We've had a lot of private investment in there between the Picnelli family and the Falcone family, but the spot on Elm Street that's been an eyesore in our community for 27 years, we're moving on that project. Again, Mike's got it wrong there. He's saying I'm going to go out and get $13 million for a parking garage off the taxpayers, and we're going to go to the state to get the money. In the 4-story or 5-story building that's planned for the site, $20 million. It's private money, Mike. Private money.
I understand.
And it's 150 to 200 jobs, and it would likely pay maybe $400,000 to $500,000 in annual taxation. That's how you grow the tax base. That's what we've been doing. I'd simply say 4 more years or 2 more years, we're going to continue with that strategy to optimize the resources that we have.
Just over 2 minutes there. You can have that same time.
Well, I'm waiting after 4 years. I'm waiting to see this tax bonanza have some impact on my property taxes and the taxes of other property owners. Haven't seen it yet because they keep on going up. Now, with regards to the riverfront project, if that's going to be private development, that's a great thing, and I would support that. But if you really believe that's going to happen, I have a bridge in Brooklyn I'd like to sell you. If that's going to really happen, then we should do the same thing for downtown development on Arnold Street. Let the private guys come in there and build that 500-car garage instead of us going into debt over it. That's a $13 million project. We're going to have to borrow the 13. Eventually, the state will give us half of that back. That still leaves us with more debt. And the 6-story building, no one's really sure that anyone's going to move into it. And as far as the bus stop goes, I'll tell you what I'll do with the bus stop. The Intermodal Transportation Center. I would instead put a sign on the front of North Elm and have 2 words on it, bus stop, and we'll save millions.
All right, sir, very good. Mr. Knapik, further thoughts, response?
I'll simply say, I don't know where you're coming up with the idea that we're going to split the deal with the state. It's a state part of the garage, and what you don't really appreciate about the way things are done, just like we went out and got a state economic development grant to rebuild Airport Road up there for $2 million, the state has looked really favorable upon our project to take a blight, Mike, a blight. While you were away in Connecticut for 27 years, I've purchased property using HUD funding, very little city money, about $100,000. We procured a $500,000 grant to clean up 27 or more years of environmental pollution. I think, what was our exposure at the local level? $100,000, okay? And no private developer will touch a site when there's contamination associated with it. And that's the role government plays. Only the government can discharge environmental liability.
Are you giving me a primer?
Because you know what, your campaign literature.
You're way off base.
Okay.
This is the worst thing you could be doing during this debate, is to give me a primer on anything.
It seems like you need it, Mike.
Well, I don't need it.
Okay.
I'll tell you, I'm wondering who needs what here. Your attitude is exactly what I was told to expect. You're an arrogant guy. You think you got it made. I'm amazed how you can condemn guys like Sullivan, who was a mayor for 14 years, and Boulanger, who you fought tooth and nail for 2 years when you were on the council.
You don't know what you're talking about.
I do.
Mr.
You don't.
Roeder,
I think
let's try and avoid personal attacks, but a final response or
Yeah,
thought?
what I would say is, we tried to work with Mike Boulanger, and he didn't want to have any advice. He didn't take any. And Rick Sullivan, no knock against Rick, but the fact of the matter is, the city that I inherited, there's decay. It was all over. Every city building rooftop leaked in the city. City Hall leaked for 40 years, Mike. 40 years, okay? The front of it almost fell into Court Street. You think I'm making this up? Check my TV show out. I got a clip on it now where we talk with the engineers about how the front end of it rotted out and almost collapsed into Court Street. If you think I'm making that up, hey, I'm fine with that because I can't change your mind on that.
Very briefly, you can respond, and then we'll have to move on.
Well, first of all, Mike Boulanger worked, I think, real hard.
This debate's not about Mike Boulanger, so let's talk about your vision for the future.
You just made a comment about him.
First.
Well, I know I did. So I'm going to make this final comment. I can't believe that you could sit here and describe Richard Sullivan's 14 years as mayor.
It's not about Rick Sullivan, Mike.
Well, it is, because you're blaming him
I'm not
and
blaming
Belanger
him.
for not doing
I'm
anything
not
with
blaming him.
infrastructure.
I've talked about 40 years.
Here's the
nothing had
bottom
been done.
line. Here's the bottom line for me. At $100 million in debt.
It's not even 100 million, Mike.
It is.
I just told you what the number was.
I don't believe you.
Oh, you don't believe?
No, I don't. Neither do a lot of
Why
other
don't you come
people.
to one of my meetings sometime and you'd learn the truth?
Because I'm too busy doing other more important things.
That's right.
I am saying to you, $100 million is the limit. We're maxed out at $100 million. That's it.
All right, we've got, I think, about 3.5 minutes left, so I probably will have to ride you on time a little on this.
Sure.
Senior citizens, an important part of the Westfield population, significant part of the population. What are your plans to work for senior citizens?
Great question. Number one, the senior center, which I totally supported, at $6 million. That's always been the figure. Suddenly last week, it's now $7 million, and 1.2 million is coming out of the rainy day fund for engineering design work. So now the senior center is suddenly 8.2 million. I do not support that. I will go 6.5 to make sure that it's totally designed, built, and furnished so that people can move in. I want them to have a senior center. It's been kicked around for 16 years, and we're finally getting ready to do it, and suddenly the price is 8.2. That will be a $10 million project like everything else in this city, and I'm opposed to that.
Mr. Knapik.
Well, first of all, it's been kicked around since about 1984. I spoke very publicly about that. I was the one that picked the site with the site selection committee. We got buy-in from the seniors. This is where they wanted to have it. And it's actually engineering and design costs, Mike. I don't know where you're getting 1.2 million, 600,000. And actually the cost of materials has gone up. And the number 7 million has been my number for well over a year when we spoke to the engineering outfit to talk about the square foot. So if you're stuck at 6 million, I'd hate to be you and tell the seniors to have some more bake sales to get to the. I'm committed for our 8,000 seniors over age 65. I'm committed to building a building that is respectful of their wishes, and that's what we're going to do, and we're going to do it for $7 million.
You have a little bit of time if you want to respond, and I have to get back to the
$7 million is $500,000 higher than I'll go, and the 1.2 million that you submitted to the council.
No, that wasn't for that. It was 600. It was 300,000 for the senior center design.
Was it 1.2 million coming? No. This is the Knapik spin. I love it. Was it 1.2 million coming out of the rainy day fund? How much was it then, Dan?
For the senior center engineering and design, 300,000. Check the record.
And you know what? I will not take money out of our savings account to pay for these kind of issues.
Can I have about 25 seconds for final thoughts on
Well,
this?
you know, I'd simply say Mike Roeder has been running for mayor since April, and, you know, he's wrong on the numbers, he's wrong on the issues, he hasn't done his homework, nobody's ever heard from him, he doesn't go on any ward meetings, and I have been more than willing to sit with anybody anytime. I don't hide anything. I go out into the public, I talk about these things, and I've been brutally honest with the challenges in front of our city. And the fact of the matter is, Mike, the city in 2010 was in terrible shape, and it's far better shape today than it was in 2010.
That's going to be our final word. Folks in Westfield, you've got your homework to do. Get out to some of the meetings around town, some of the debates coming up. Get ready to vote on November 5th. Our thanks to Daniel Knapik, Michael Roeder. Thanks for watching.